Welcome to What Would Happen If, the show that's all about whats and ifs. And speaking of whats and ifs, what about the bloke who sat down in front of his friends one day and said, what would happen if I took a lump of wood and put it on the end of a long stick and then used it to hit a ball 200 yards into a tiny hole?
On tonight's show, what would happen if you brake suddenly with a nodding dog in the back of your car?
Oh!
If you use divine intervention to stop a bullet.
Firing now!
And what would happen if you tried to get DNA out of a kiwi fruit?
You're joking, and I could extract it from you.
Have you ever seen a film where the hero had to hide from the baddie by going underwater and breathing through a straw? Well, what would happen if you had to do that? How deep could you go? And what's to stop you going even deeper? Now, you might think that finding the answer to this is just to take a really long pipe and make a snorkel out of it, but there are a couple of problems that you have to overcome first. One of them is carbon dioxide. So I'm going to make a long snorkel, but with a built-in CO2 monitoring device. This will show us just how much carbon dioxide there is in parts per million. Because there is more in your exhaled breath than there is in your inhaled breath, if you keep breathing the same air in and out, the CO2 levels increase. If the carbon dioxide levels continue to increase, it can be lethal. And it doesn't take long to see those CO2 levels rise to dangerous limits. After 10 minutes, if I start going over safe levels, I'll be breathing too fast, start to choke, and eventually become unconscious. So that's one problem with a long snorkel. But there's also an even more pressing one. Now, you've probably all heard about PSI, which stands for pounds per square inch. But what does that actually mean, and what does it have to do with breathing underwater? Our bodies are under pressure all the time from the Earth's atmosphere. We don't notice it because we become normalised to it. If we took a 1 square inch section of tube and made it about 300 miles high, so it reached the top of the Earth's atmosphere, then measured the weight of the air trapped inside the tube, it would weigh 14.7 pounds. That's the weight of 1 atmosphere, 14.7 pounds per square inch. But what does all this talk of pressure have to do with my ability to breathe underwater? Well, the muscles in our chest are just not made to work at much more than atmospheric pressure. And by going into the water, we increase the amount of pressure on our bodies.
Right, now, this is a bog standard balloon, inflated in the normal way. And at the moment, obviously, it's out of the water and there's air around it. So there's 1 atmosphere of pressure around the balloon. And at the moment, it's this sort of size. But if I take it down underwater, and because water is more dense than air, the extra weight of water will increase the pressure, and it should get smaller.
Well, it's time to put it to the test. How far can I get before the pressure gets to me? Using Phil to regulate my depth, I'm going to go down in small stages until I can't breathe anymore. Even at this level, I'm surprisingly starting to feel the pressure of the water on me. I have to try extremely hard to expand my chest to get the air into my lungs. What's really surprising is that a small increase in depth makes such a big difference in the amount of effort required. And it doesn't take much until I lose the battle against pressure.
Almost a metre. That was completely awful. I just couldn't breathe at all because you just can't inflate your chest. It's horrible. So if that's your only choice if you're trying to escape, I seriously suggest you just give yourself up. Whew.
What would happen if a car travelling at 100 kilometres an hour suddenly stopped? The driver stops, the car stops, but the nodding dog on the back parcel shelf, he keeps going.
You reckon there is a possible situation where this driver is totally safe after the crash, right up to the moment that that nodding dog comes flying into the back of his head?
Well, lucky, isn't it?
I've got to find that out.
Let's have a look.
Okay.
That's your nodding dog.
It is. It's a standard nodding dog.
There's a bit of weight to them.
What's inside these things?
Ooh, that's a bit more dangerous than you'd first think.
That hit the back of your head at 100 kilometers an hour.
Well, 100 kilometers an hour is about as fast as a baseball pitcher's going to throw it. And you know, if you threw a bolt at the back of your head, it'd probably nail you.
Yeah.
Or bolt you. So in which case, I can imagine it could kill a bloke.
Well, here's a bloke. Kinda.
His head, that's not like a human head.
It's not really head-like, is it?
I think we can get a more human-like head on there.
Okay, well, let you find a head. I'm going to cut this one off. You got a head?
Check that. That's got a bit more of a sort of human fleshy tone to it. Looks great. Chris, if you want to put the dog in the catapult.
In our dogapult.
Pull it back as far as you can and we'll see how close to 100 kilometers an hour we've got it going. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Go. Whoa! Whoa! Fire. Whoa!
What was that?
94.
That's good enough.
Yeah, that's close enough.
Okay, we like
Excellent.
that.
Yeah, have you checked with the dog that he's okay with it?
I'll ask him. Do you mind this? I mean, it's obviously going to be a bit dangerous. He's cool. All right, it's your choice. Let's go.
Further back.
He's looking a bit anxious now. Ready?
Oh! Oh! Whoa! Oh! You just clipped it. You got him.
I think it got him. Did it?
Well, look there. I think what happened from where I was looking, it looked like the dog hit it, and on the impact, it span, and the bolt actually came flying out. Which makes me think that if the bolt itself doesn't hit you, you're okay, but I think it would be a different story. Imagine if it's coming off the parcel shelf, clips something, tumbles, then the bolt heads straight for you.
Like getting hit by a bullet. Should we try that?
Different story, isn't it?
That's going to be fun.
In this situation, it's like, stop, woof, a dog hits on the back of the head.
Let's have a go. All right, the worst case scenario is that the heavy bit, which is this bolt that makes it nod, hits you on the head. That bit's actually quite light. We can do it without that. If that hits you on the back of the head, it's going to hurt.
That's not only the heavy bit, that's the bit with no cushioning.
That's it.
Come on.
What do you think?
It looks good. I'll be amazed if you hit it.
Ready?
Yeah. Whoa! Back of the head. Look at that. Giving him a nose. An exit wound. His nose is dripping. All down his front.
You know the human head is like practically the same water-wise as a melon. That's exactly what would happen.
That's an absolute shocker.
It is.
Oh, it's got an actual exit wound. Oh no, the bolt is still embedded in his head. We've given him a nose.
He's got a nose. Should have a look to get it out.
That's a completely different situation now.
Look at that.
So if the dog hits you in its entirety, you're probably going to be fine.
Yeah.
But if the bolt comes out...
You don't want to be there. You need a big crash helmet around the back of your head. That looks scary, doesn't it?
That's dead.
This is Dr. Nikki Woolmore, a ballistics expert specialising in forensic science. She currently works for the MOD's Defence Ordnance Safety Group. We could tell you exactly what she does, but then we'd have to kill you. Today we are testing two things people use for finding direction in life: a Bible and a handheld GPS, to see which is better at stopping a 9mm bullet. In November 2006, an unnamed 54-year-old man was shot whilst taking out the garbage in Florida, in the United States. In his shirt pocket were 2 copies of the New Testament, which some may say miraculously stopped the bullet. Out of respect and a fear of being struck by lightning, we're using a hardback book instead of a Bible.
Firing now.
bullet travels at 380 metres per second, and shooting with a high-speed camera at 10,000 frames per second, we can actually see the bullet in flight.
My hopes were that the book would actually stop the round, but sadly I was wrong. And here we've got the entry, and as you can see, clear exit of the 9mm bullet through our standard book. Now, if you had a book in front of you, more than likely the round would have probably gone straight through you, or certainly would have stopped at a vital organ or in your bone.
So the highly favoured book doing little to slow the bullet down, let alone stop it. Will the handheld GPS do any better?
Stand by, firing, now!
Not only has the bullet been captured in flight by the high-speed camera, but the Aramid has also done its job.
Here you can see the entry of the 9mm bullet through the GPS and the subsequent capture of our 9mm inside the Aramid. So in this case, our bullet did not actually enter the ballistic gelatin. What was really interesting, if we look at our GPS, you can actually see slight melting around the plastic on the entry. Our ultimate winner is the GPS, but to be really honest, I probably wouldn't want either in front of me to stop my 9mm.
What would happen if you locked not one, not two, but three leading academics in a room and gave them 10 minutes to answer a hypothetical question? This is Brains in a Box, and today's question is, what would happen if everyone in the world jumped at the same time? Time starts now.
Well, the shortest possible answer of this is zilch, that nothing much would happen. Locally, if there were lots of people, you would get some vibration, a little bit of a seismic shock.
The Earth itself is something like 10 trillion times heavier than all the weight of all the people.
I fiddled with some calculations there and got the population of China, but I put them at 75 kilos each, which is probably a little bit heavy for Chinese, would come to about 30 million joules of energy. The way to get the maximum effect would be to bring us all together into... Where do you think would be big enough?
The usual example, you could fit the whole population of the human race on the Isle of Wight.
And still, how would you get everybody to jump at the same time? There's actually been an experiment. There was a Dutch rock band called We're Heroes. They got 50,000 people to hop simultaneously and measured it with the seismograph, and they got 1 or 2 units.
I think the pattern of the Earth's orbit would never change, however violent it is, because people are part of the Earth, part of the mass of the Earth. And so if they push the Earth away and jump off, the Earth-people system moves apart, but the centre of gravity stays the same.
We'll leave our brains in a box for the moment as they consider their top 3 conclusions. While they do that, here's what's still to come.
Truly awful and completely rubbish.
What would happen if you used the law of averages to play darts? And what would happen if you got loads and loads of fun snaps and went large?
Half the plan is right to jump alternately with the other half and try and spin this.
Back to our brains in a box, and we gave 3 leading academics 10 minutes to answer the question, what would happen if everyone in the world jumped at the same time? Presenting their conclusions is Professor Heinz Wolf.
Well, as the people are spread all over the Earth, much of the effects would cancel out because people would jump in equal and opposite directions. Even if you were to try and eliminate that, and get everybody to stand on the Isle of Wight on a chair, an individual chair, and jump at the time, you might produce a very tiny seismic disturbance. Again, the effects would be small. And the number one is that the ratio of 6 billion people, the population of the Earth, to the actual weight of the Earth is 1/10 trillionth. So the chance of having any effect whatsoever is, as I said at the beginning, zilch.
Table 4. Breakfast.
Sherry trifle, creme brulee, 2 black forest gatto and the DNA of a kiwi fruit, please.
What, DNA from a kiwi fruit? You're joking, and I could extract it from you, but I just happen to have 2 kiwi fruit in my fridge here. We can extract the DNA from those easily enough. What I've got to do is break the cells down so as to release the DNA. Let's smash those up. So we've already started releasing the DNA from the cells of that kiwi fruit. To help that extraction process along, I need some salt, some washing up liquid, and some water. I've got some water there. Right, so half a fistful of salt, about that much salt. Good long squirt of ordinary washing up liquid. Oh, yeah. And, yeah. A bit too much, yeah, we'll have that much water. So let's mash that up, give it a good mix. And then we'll drop it in here. Yeah, it's just 50. So let's take it up to 60 Celsius. And that should be nice. And we leave that just boiling, simmering away for about 15 minutes. DNA is dissolved in the water, kind of cloudy still. There we go. It's coming through. Okie dokie, pig in a pokey, we got enough there. Now, let's just transfer some of this very carefully into this glass. You don't need to put all of it, it's just about depth of 3 centimetres. I'm going to pour this meth very gently down the side of the big glass there. Now, I know meths and water do mix, but I want them to mix as little as possible. So there we are, put the meths in. Now, remember I told you that the DNA was dissolved in the water? Well, the reason I've mixed the meths and the water up is that I want an interface between the two, because DNA isn't soluble in meths, it doesn't dissolve in meths. If you look closely, where the purple layer meets the yellow layer, can you see that, like cotton walk, is that cloudiness? That's the DNA from the kiwi fruit. Look at that. DNA from a kiwi fruit. Absolutely amazing. Got the microwave. Forgot to put the microwave on.
Big and small. Go large, where we see what would happen if we take a kid's toy and go that little bit bigger. Fun snaps. Little twists of paper, which, when you chuck them on the ground, make a very satisfying bang. Or, well, more of a pop, really. How much more fun this whole thing could be if it went large. Fun snaps consist of a small paper wrap filled with a few grains of sand which are coated in silver fulminate. It's the stuff they put into the explosive bit of a Christmas cracker, and it's very impact sensitive. When it's thrown against the ground, the friction between the sand and the silver fulminate causes it to explode within the tissue. Not strictly a firework then, more a little noisemaker. And as such, any child with a little spare pocket money can pick up a box quite legally, on the assumption, I suppose, they won't get lots and lots, put them in a big bag, and then drop them from a crane. One fun snap on its own weighs about 1/4 gram. 20,000 of them in our big snapper comes in at a weighty 10 kilos. Away she goes, falling to the ground, and... yes, well, was it a bang? Let's hear that again. Pop, I think would be safe to call it. Barely worth putting your hands to your ears. It appears that not enough of those fun snaps got enough of a shock to make a really good blast. Still, now we know that's what happens when you take some fun snaps and go large.
He steps up to the hockey. He really needs 3 high-scoring darts now to have any chance of winning this match. He's aiming at the treble 20. Here we go then. Oh no, it's in the 1. Second dart. Oh, and again, just 1 scored. Can he do better with the 3rd dart? No, that's in the 1 as well. Only 3 scored. What a disaster.
Well, that's the story of my life in darts as well. You aim for the treble 20 and it goes into the 1. How's somebody who's rubbish as me supposed to get a decent score? Fortunately, there are a couple of clever chaps up at the University of Aberdeen, and they've come up with a way of improving your game without having to do any practice at all. Right, hi guys, now tell me all about this.
Well, the basic idea is people go and play darts in a pub, and they generally just aim for the treble 20 because they think that's where you'll get the better score. Yes, it might be better for you to aim for a different part of the board because you'll get a better score on average.
So, what we've got here are 3 darts boards and 3 darts players, and they're all throwing the darts at the board and aiming at the treble 20 at the top. Our first darts player is this gentleman here. He's a county player. He's truly awesome. Our second player, now he's just sort of your average player, plays down the pub every now and then, Mr. Average. And our final player here, now, we had to tell her which end of the dart to hold this morning. She's truly awful and completely rubbish. And what we've got them to do is to throw 10 darts each and to tally up their score.
So, 10 darts. First, we'll see how much they can score by aiming at the treble 20, and then we'll see if we can improve that by giving them each different numbers to aim at. We can then take their average dart score and give them a skill level. So, an average of 60 per dart, the best you can get, and you have a skill level of 0. An average of 0 means you're a 10. OK, so how have our 3 got on?
OK then, for your 10 darts, how much do you get?
354.
354 for 10 darts. Mr. Average?
78.
78, and truly awful?
53.
53. So, 354, that's an average of 35. What does that make our Mr. Awesome?
Well, that makes him a 1.
Skill level 1.
That's really
Excellent.
good. So this is where I want him to aim.
OK, and then 78, 7.8.
Well, that's a 6. So I want him to aim here.
In the 8. And lastly, 5.3.
Well, I'm afraid that's a 10. So I want you to aim right here, right dead centre.
Excellent, right. So 10 more darts, but this time aiming at the spots. Off you go.
So how did our boffins come up with the specific places for darts players to aim for?
Here.
Skill level 0.
Aim for the treble 20.
Yeah. And if you're not quite that good, then you want to aim slightly higher.
So this is where Mr. Awesome is aiming. He's not perfect, but he's still awesome.
Yes.
But then there's a big jump somewhere, isn't it?
Yes, it's all the way down here.
So why down there now?
When you're aiming here, if you miss, then you're going to get a higher average score than you would if you were aiming up here. Because if you see around the 7, we've got 19, 16.
And up here it's 1 and 5. So yeah, so much better aiming here.
Yes.
But then it sort of swivels around and it's gradually getting closer and closer into the ball. Why is that?
Because if you're really bad, you want to make sure you actually hit the board. So you aim right in the
You just
middle.
aim at the board.
Now, obviously there's still a problem in games like 501 where you have to end by hitting a double. But at least you will get there a bit quicker, if the theory is correct. So have our 3 improved at all?
OK, Mr. Awesome, how'd it go?
I scored 372.
And you were on 354 before, so that's an improvement. You're more awesome. Mr. Average?
This time 114.
And you were on 78 before, so that's a big improvement for you. Miss Awful?
82.
82, but you started on 53, and you're as good as he was before he started, so you've achieved mediocrity. Congratulations. And that is how you improve your dart score without having to do any extra practice.